What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So while we did have that press release from Nintendo that mentioned 3.5 million Switch 2 systems selling in its first 4 days on the market, we now have numbers that are specific to a very popular region for Nintendo, and well, some of the figures coming out are absolutely staggering at this point. We're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a showcase that happened yesterday that did reveal a heavily requested remake that had the horror community very, very excited. And the MindsEye situation continues to spiral, and unfortunately now it looks like it is really getting closer and closer to that Cyberpunk release with some of these recent developments. We'll go over that as well. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Sonic Racing Crossworlds, as we had some information come out about sort of post-release support and actually guest characters, which is makes this kind of interesting based on what they could do here. So we can see this posted up. This is over on Games Radar, saying in an interview with Famitsu, series producer Takashi Luzuka revealed the team is planning to add one new character to Sonic Racing Crossworlds each and every month. Luzuka didn't specify when the post-launch plans will conclude, although the upcoming characters are likely to come from Sega's roster. Now, we already kind of saw this with like Ichiban, for example, being revealed in that recent trailer. However, Luzuka played coy when asked about the possibility of Shenmue's return to kart racing after his small cameo in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. So, yeah, I mean, you can go through and look at all the different Sega series and franchises. Obviously, we've seen kind of Persona already crossover. You can take some of the characters from there. Shin Megami Tensei, Phantasy Star, Puyo Puyo, Super Monkey Ball are all ones that have at least had guesses thrown out online, and that is kind of an interesting idea because then it's sort of like Sega's Smash Brothers almost. I mean, within Sega. But who knows? Maybe they go outside of the Sega walls and find some other franchises that companies want to have their characters. I don't know. Honestly, the future would be quite interesting for Crossworlds here, so we'll see what they have up their sleeves, apparently every month with some new character to introduce. Also, we had an Easter egg that was revealed to us that's gone undiscovered for the past 4 years for Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart. Now, the game itself isn't very, I mean, it's medium length, but it's like, I think it took me 15 hours to get the platinum on it, so it's not like a long game where big open world, easier to hide something off in a corner somewhere of this 100-hour epic experience or something. But this was such an obscure thing, it went unnoticed just because of the steps that it takes to make it happen. Now, you can see in this video here, those posted up, is over on their official X account. And here they have the senior designer Grant Parker showing off this secret prototype minigame. And what happens is before you go into the area, you have to shoot the signs in this weird order. It's like 5 shots, then 4 shots, then 15 shots, something. Again, they explain it here, and then when you go inside, there's nothing that tells you it was activated, but then you go up to the mechanical bull, and it puts you into a very, they say beta or early development period for it, where you can sort of control your character on the mechanical bull. That's kind of it. I mean, that's just sort of the Easter egg, the secret that's been hidden this whole time and until now. So, hey, if you want to follow the steps, you should be able to do it without any issues on your copy of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Until now, it's been really hidden there for the past 4 years. Oh, and we did have a bit of an outage yesterday when it came to just all kinds of online services, but also just games in general. So matchmaking in Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, seemingly everything was kind of having weird issues. And if you look on Down Detector, there's this massive spike in the afternoon. It was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon Eastern time. All of a sudden, stuff was just going down. Like, I know a lot of Google services were struggling. So if you were online yesterday in games, you kept getting kicked out, you weren't really sure what was going on, just seemed to be a massive outage. Now, from what I've seen so far, everything's kind of back to normal, not only just with Down Detector, but just my own experience of, oh wow, Mario Kart's not working right now. That's weird. And then come back a few hours, and now it is. So just want to throw that out there just so you know, yes, everyone else, their games weren't working either. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2 and some staggering sales numbers that are coming out of Japan. Now, this, of course, would cover about half the week for the Switch 2 being on sale last week. So starting, Wednesday night at midnight time, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And in this case, the Switch, when it came out back in 2017 in Japan, about 330 or so thousand systems sold that were recorded by like Famitsu Tracker. Okay, so we were looking right around there. Okay, if it can beat that, that'd be good. I believe the high mark here would be for the PlayStation 2, and that was right around 700,000 when everything was sort of considered and they had some estimates and rounding errors and stuff. So, okay, if you can hit that, that'd be incredible. It blew that away too. So let's start here though with the hardware. This coming from Famitsu, we can see posted up. That's a nice little chart here from Install Base Forum. The Nintendo Switch 2, 947,931 systems were sold at retail in Japan last week. Very important to note, this does not account for the My Nintendo store. So if you remember, Nintendo themselves were doing invites and stuff, just in general, like across the, like globally. But in Japan, it was a big story. Remember, there were so many people trying to get in, and they were doing like a system where it's kind of just lottery, right? And in fact, that's still happening at retailers right now. And it seems like it's going to be happening for quite some time, despite them selling 947,931 at retail. So if you just give a basic estimate of like for My Nintendo store, it looks like they sold more than 1 million systems in a few days in Japan. In fact, the 947,000 immediately makes the Switch 2 the best-selling system year to date in a few days. Yeah, so we've kind of talked about it after that 3.5 million number was thrown around. This just shows you specifically the demand in Japan. And it gets a bit more interesting when you do look at the hardware. Oh, that's what I do, or software. I do want to point out, by the way, the Switch still somehow sold 16,611 systems despite the Switch 2 being there. I mean, it's possible that hey, you're still buying them for younger audience, or maybe you're somebody who's like, hey, now's the time to make the move on the Switch because the Switch 2's out and there's a massive, I don't know, I guess. I'm sure people still want the system, but nonetheless, taking a look at the software, Mario Kart World was at the top, 782,566. Now, there is a bit of an assumption here, and I believe it's the correct one, that this would be counting bundles. So when you sell the system at retail with Mario Kart World packaged in, at retail, they can count Mario Kart World as selling because it's going across the register and they, of course, can mark it. So this should count the bundles, and it makes sense why so many Mario Kart Worlds would sell here. Unfortunately, because of that, everything's kind of thrown together, so we can't really tell who bought Mario Kart World at retail for like the full price with the cartridge, the whole thing there that wasn't just attached to the system. Nonetheless, massive attach rate for Mario Kart World, which you sort of expect since that is the game that's kind of pushing the system for Nintendo, a heavy mainstream title there with Mario Kart. Right below that, we do have Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. That was 45,703. Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, 17,180. By the way, they did announce that game has now crossed 1 million copies sold. So good news there for Fantasy Life fans. Natsumi's Book of Friends, that's 16,865. Then we have Elden Ring Night Rain, another 12,000 copies there. Rune Factory, Gardens of Azuma, that's on the Switch 2, specifically that edition. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and then Breath of the Wild, those are the Switch 2 editions. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut on the Switch 2, that was 7,486. And then Super Mario Party Jamboree rounds out the top 10. And really, this should be no surprise. Japan was massive for the Switch. There's tons of people clearly who want the Switch 2 there after the Switch 1 sold like 33 some odd million systems in that one region. So yeah, the Switch 2 is going to be heavily sought after for quite some time in Japan alone, not to mention just globally, as it seems like Nintendo is trying to roll out a ton of systems. Again, there have been talks apparently internally of them trying to get to 20 million systems in the fiscal year that they're in currently. That ends at the end of March. They would try to do 20 million systems realistically in 10 months, which would be quite impressive. At that point, you can kind of put the artificial scarcity talks for Nintendo kind of to bed, because that's just an overwhelming amount of supply for just 10 months. So we'll keep an eye on Japan, because I'm curious next week how things go after this supply has been exhausted. As Nintendo has said, they're trying to just get more and more stock out to different retail stores all across the world. We saw yesterday more supply seemed to come in to different retailers again, and then it sold out after a few hours. So I'm not sure if just tons of them are just constantly in transit right now and they're just kind of trickling into retail stores, but I do think that by the end of this month, we're going to hear about a number between 5 and 6 million. If it's more than 6, that would be mind-blowing. So I'm thinking between 5 and 6. And I don't really think the Switch 2 demand is gonna slow down for this. So we're talking about the system now with Mario Kart, and then you get potentially a direct here in a couple of weeks, start setting up the rest of this year and then into next year. And then you're talking about there being another, like a new generation of Pokemon. You get that crowd involved with it. I think this is going to be a big seller for Nintendo for quite some time. So, hey, but we'll see, especially as we go into the holidays, if Nintendo's even able to keep up with demand when it comes to the stock side. Next up, let's talk about the Konami Press Start Showcase, as they actually showed up with a decent showing. Like, it's about 36 minutes, and yeah, there was some stuff where you're like, okay, here's the mobile game. But they opened strong. They had another good reveal towards the end of the show, and then right at the end to close out, it's like, yeah, here we go. We got a big remake. So is Konami back? Because it kind of feels like we can say that now. You know, let's see how things go with Metal Gear and Silent Hill F. But first, though, we can start here with that press start showcase, where they did lead off with Metal Gear Solid Delta. And they showed the Snake versus Monkey for PlayStation 5 and Steam, and then Snake versus Bomberman for the Xbox Series. We already knew about that, but they just showed it more in depth here, which is cool. They mentioned they made changes to AI and animations to balance things better. The secret theater videos are collectibles in the game. They made new ones for this release and said that some of the soldiers you come across, some of the enemies, will have them attached to them, and you can actually see them like on their gear. So I think that's kind of cool to have that as a collectible, something, a reason to explore and to take out different enemies as you go through. And then they did announce this multiplayer mode that they hinted at before. It's called Fox Hunt. It's an original online mode, so it's not like one that they're bringing from the old Metal Gear or anything. But they did say it's like a hide and go seek kind of gameplay. And there's just more details to come later. So I guess they're going to have another showing, a trailer, something to explain it a bit more. But that is August 28th, of course. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's looked awesome every time they've shown it. So I'm really excited for that. Darwin's Paradox, that's the that's the adventure platformer game where you play as an octopus. They mentioned you can camouflage, climb, you can swim, you can spit ink. Still waiting on more information about a release for that one, but it looks creative and kind of fun there. And we have eFootball. That's just a commercial they had for it. It's free. You can download it. MLB Pro Spirit. It's a mobile phone baseball game. Then there's some discussion around Yu-Gi-Oh! There's the World Championships 2025 qualifiers. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, the Chronicles short anime series. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans got some stuff, I guess, to look forward to there. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, of course, that is on the Switch too, as they showed off. And then Suikoden Starleap. That's the free-to-play game that was for iOS and Android, and now it's also coming to Steam. I know people are like, it's free to play, which yes, that means in-game purchases. We'll see though when it does release how it all goes. Gradius Origins though, awesome looking collection. That's August 7th. Deliver at All Costs, that's out now. Eden Zero, there's a demo out now where your save data carries over. That's releasing July 15th. Survival Kids, that is out now on the Switch too. They just discussed it more here. I've seen that a few times. Let me know if you picked that up, because I'm curious if that's something that would work with, some of the younger kids maybe that can play in co-op for that on the Switch too. Silent Hill F, big showing here, obviously towards the end, as it is releasing September 25th. I think it also looks awesome. So I just like the vibe that they have here, where they're saying you find beauty in terror with how they're mixing that up. And it looks really cool, very unique. And then, of course, the big closeout that got everyone excited, Silent Hill 1 is getting a remake from Bloober Team. And I know it sounds weird, because it's like, you just did Silent Hill 2, now you're going back to Silent Hill 1. I mean, look, Silent Hill 2 is the most popular game in the Silent Hill series, completely. So if you're gonna take a shot at this whole thing with Bloober Team, you at least give them the one that's gonna give them the best chance, right? The best setup there with Silent Hill 2. And I say they pulled it off really well. So Silent Hill 1 is the game that needs it the most, a remake. I think we can all kind of agree. It's from the PS1 generation, and leaves a lot to the imagination when you play through it with some of those visuals and animations, even the sound. So based on what they did with Silent Hill 2, I think this could be awesome. They didn't have much to show, just that it's in development, so it's going to be a while, but it is really cool to see that they're going to continue on with Bloober Team after how they did with Silent Hill 2. Again, overall, I thought it was a pretty good showcase from Konami. We've seen all these other third parties sort of back out when it comes to the idea of a Ubisoft Forward or something from EA. And here's Konami like, nah, we got more than half an hour of stuff we can show you, so feels like a different Konami right now, doesn't it? And that, to me, that's a really exciting thing to have back in gaming right now. Next up, let's talk about Stellar Blade releasing on PC. This being published by Sony, as we know. They are making that push right now for their PC initiative, and a lot of it is more delayed releases. So they'll have something on console, leave it there for a year or more, and then they'll move it over to PC. And I'll say those windows have been getting smaller and smaller, but Stellar Blade kind of followed along as you'd expect here, and with its release came quite a bit of success day one. Now, this is over on SteamDB, and it's obviously a way we can track reliably when it comes to PC releases for something like this, where there's not necessarily just a launcher off to the side that you can point to. So we can see it did hit a high of 183,830 concurrent players. So this is, again, just very impressive for Shift Up, obviously, and then also for PlayStation Publishing for this, because I think this is the second game they've published on PC that did numbers like this. The other one being Helldivers 2. But for a single player game like this that's not reliant on live service and multiplayer, this is big time. This is it. I don't know if it's I don't want to say opening eyes for PlayStation, but the thing with this with Stellar Blade is the port is good. The PC release seems to operate very, very well. High frame rates. It looks great visually. The combat and everything is fluid. It's fun. But it just seems like in this case, it's been received very, very well on PC, on Steam. And then you see the results, right? So again, we need to see how Sony wants to navigate going forward when it comes to their console base. It does make me wonder, though, if they see these kind of releases and go, what would happen if we did release a big single player game day and date PC and PlayStation? Would it really affect PlayStation sales that much? Because it kind of feels like people on PC are just going to wait for these games, as we see with Stellar Blade, whereas you could get that money much, much earlier and then reinvest. I mean, a year at that point of just reinvestment and capital, I can go a long way. So for now, though, Stellar Blade off to a fast start. Seems like the reviews are good. If you haven't checked it out, I think it's a pretty fun action game. And yeah, I'd recommend checking it out on PC, as I've seen some of the screenshots for people showing their ultra-wide setups with the nice video cards, and the game does look really impressive. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about MindsEye, which is a game that I'm still working through. I play for an hour or so at a time and then kind of put it up for a bit. And apparently it's not a very long game, so even at that pace, I'll probably be done by next week in time for Rematch. It'd be fun too. But it does appear that Builder Rocket Boy is working to patch this thing quickly with hot fixes, and it needs, I'm sure, several of them at this point. If you've played it, it feels like it's barely held together right now. Well, we can see this is posted up. This is over on GameSpot, and it has an update schedule from MindsEye. So Friday, we have a hotfix number 1. Hotfix number 2 will be the week of June 16th. And then by the end of June, update 3. And a lot of it comes down to things like initial CPU and GPU performance improvements, along with memory optimizations, as they have mentioned that one of the issues that they've run into for crashing, which a lot of clips of this game crashing on PC, on PlayStation, etc. There seems to be a memory leak, according to them. Okay, so there you go. They also mentioned hotfix 2, continuous incremental performance and stability improvements, fix for buggy wheels, not visually spinning while driving, fix for areas in car manufacturing where players could fall through the world. And then by the end of June, they'll have ongoing performance and stability updates, animation fixes, AI improvement. Look, we've already been over this. Like, the game clearly wasn't ready to come out, and I'm sure there was just pressure to get the game released already so they can start bringing money in. That's just kind of how it goes, right? With publisher versus developer timelines, and them not necessarily in sync completely. So maybe in a few months, the game will be at least somewhat fixed, and then it's worth recommending for a good steep discount, maybe. But it looks like some people aren't going to be waiting, because PlayStation is just offering refunds for it, and this does kind of feel like a parallel to what happened with Cyberpunk, where that game was pretty broken, and PlayStation just started refunding people, no questions asked, and eventually they just pulled it off the storefront. So this, you can see over on The Gamer, and here they just have several instances of people contacting Sony through their customer support, and it just seems like they go, yep, here you go. We understand, we know what's happening here. Here's your refund. Because I will tell you this, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get a refund on really any of these consoles. Xbox is probably the one that's the most lenient. PlayStation really isn't. They'll even track. It's like, hey, if your kid bought that by accident, okay, we'll refund this time, but we're going to write it down. And it's like, okay. So it's not Steam where, oh, you've played it for 45 minutes, no problem, automated, boom, money's back. No. And Nintendo is very much like Sony when it's like, Okay, let's go through a whole detective thing here and figure out how this happened. Like, they want to investigate, and they'll do it this time, but maybe not next time. So yeah, the fact that it's so quick by Sony means that they are very aware of the buggy nature and the state and the low quality of this game. So I guess if you hold on to it, if you already bought it, I guess in a few weeks it'll be fixed. I say I guess because there wasn't a lot of confidence going into the release, and I can't have a lot of confidence going into really any of these patches despite what they're describing here. I'd recommend, even if you're interested in like the story or the look of it, hold off a bit. Let's see how these hot fixes do. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played the original Silent Hill game before? Well, 64% just say no, 36% say yes. That's actually higher than I thought, to be honest. Now, some said, yeah, I started it up and then I didn't go very far into it because I know there's nostalgia around this because it's a PS1 game, but it is a PS1 game. So it's games from that era, that early 3D era, haven't aged the best. So this is one that I think could look very, very impressive. Again, massive jump, obviously, in terms of visuals, audio, just gameplay design. So after, again, Silent Hill 2 was awesome, I think, by Bloober Team. So I feel like this is another chance for them to show what they can do with an established IP. And keep in mind, they're going to have to do a little more work here, I think, with Silent Hill 1, because the foundation isn't laid as much as it was with Silent Hill 2, where at least with the PS2 generation, we had more of that narrative setup. Because, yes, the visuals are better, but also just kind of everything else going from the PS1 to the PS2 got better when it came to the presentation. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they come up with here. I also think we're several years off, so I guess we'll find out probably towards the end of this generation. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from the Bone Collector. It says, on one hand, sure, it sucks that you have to wait 5 to 10 years for the next game in one of your favorite franchises. On the other hand, there are so many developers now and already too many good games to play in a year. If every company was putting out a new game every 1 to 2 years, we'd be absolutely drowning in our gaming backlog. So I will agree with you in the idea, the opposite side argument of, man, it takes so long to release games, but a lot of games still come out every year. Last year on Steam, 19,000 games released in 1 year. That is insanity, isn't it? Now, I will say this. Not every game is good. The vast majority of the games aren't good. They don't get a lot of attention, but they're still games that release. On the Switch alone, so in its generation, we talked about the backwards compatibility thing where they tested 15,000 games or so. Think about that for a minute. A ton of games still came out there. Then you go, okay, well, there's PlayStation, there's Xbox. There's just games everywhere. So yes, in a sense, if Naughty Dog came out with a game every 2 years or something, along with all these other big publishers, there just wouldn't be room. And things will just kind of be held anyway because they have to plan out their release schedules. But still, when you hear about a developer taking 10 years to make a game, it's like, okay, that might be a little long. I think the sweet spot is still 4 to 5 years for even some of the larger studios out there with these big budget releases. And I'd like to see us get maybe back to a cadence like that overall. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to see some more of my thoughts around MindsEye after I had played it for the first time when it released, I'll leave that in a video right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.